All right, hello and welcome into the first edition of the Vegas Squares Radio Podcast. It's going to be fun, just kind of bullshit and see what happens. This was kind of thrown together on a little bit of a whim, but Anthony, what do you think about your very first podcast starting up? It's pretty easy to talk sports, if I'm not mistaken.
Of course. Been a big sports fan my whole life. Originally from the Detroit area. Big fan of the Detroit teams, now in Vegas. Happy to talk all about sports in general.
Well, good. And because you're a fan of Detroit, you'll have more time to probably focus on other sports and other teams and other regions because there's not really much going on in Detroit.
No.
Well, we thank you guys for listening in. We're having a lot of fun putting this all together, and hopefully we can get some interest, get some followings, and if anybody wants to be a part of the show, they're always welcome to. You can always email us. We just set up the email address. What is it? VegasSquares@gmail.com. So if you ever have any questions, comments, criticisms, donations, you're more than welcome to direct it all that way. But we got a pretty good first podcast, if I'm not mistaken. In my opinion, we got Week 10 in the NFL, which is just past the midway point of the season, so we'll be handing out some of our mid-season awards. I know, I don't know if we're on the same page as far as that, but that's going to be an interesting topic to talk about here soon. Talk about some second-half potential breakout candidates, and what would a good podcast be without the Cleveland Browns and the shit they fuck up?
They mess up a lot of fucking shit.
Yeah, as a Patriots fan here, we're going to talk about the Garoppolo trade. I still don't know what side of the fence I stand on that one, but his impact in the 49ers, we'll see what happens the rest of the year. We'll get our thoughts on that. NCAA football this weekend, a lot going on. 3 out of the top 4 playoff teams have ranked opponents this weekend. So there could be a lot of shakeup going on. Yeah, absolutely. What do you think about the weekend slate in college football?
Should be a lot of shakeup talking the playoff picture.
Yeah, we'll talk a little hockey. We'll talk a little bit of current events going on, and we'll see what happens. We'll have a little fun with this, and if you like it, great. Give us a follow on Instagram at Vegas Squares Podcast. Follow on Twitter at Vegas Squares. No Facebook page as of just yet, but it looks like you're going to find us on SoundCloud and YouTube to begin with. I got the crack engineering team working on getting our podcasts uploaded so you guys can hear it as soon as possible. So when you talk about the NFL, we dive into the Week 10 slate, and it starts tonight, Seattle versus Arizona. And a tale of 2 very strange teams this year. Arizona came in with a lot of expectations. Seattle for the last, 5 years, however long since they've had that Legion of Boom has had, Super Bowl realistic expectations. Obviously winning one, appearing in a second one, but it's a tale of 2 teams that have had weird seasons. Obviously Carson Palmer's out for the year, so that the Cardinals are going to go with Drew Stanton, which I'm sure the Legion of Boom is licking their chops at this point.
Yeah.
What do you think about Thursday night's game? Is it, we're recording here Thursday morning. It's the first game on the slate of Week 10. What do you think about that game?
I look at Arizona to cover the spread this week. Spread is currently at 6. Arizona just picked up Adrian Peterson. Seattle's run defense has been struggling as of late.
Yeah, Peterson trade, that was an interesting one. Peterson was sitting in a shithole in New Orleans. 3rd on the depth chart. Maybe if he's lucky, scratch out 5-10 touches a game. But now all of a sudden he's the primary back. You remember when Emmitt Smith was traded over to, signed with Arizona at the twilight of his career. Obviously, he had a stinker over there, but Adrian's not.
Adrian still has a lot of potential.
Yeah, he's a different kind of athletic specimen than most running backs who've hit past 30. Obviously, he's had 2 knee injuries. He's saved a couple of years off of that, workhorse shelf life, but he's had a lot of carries in his career. He doesn't seem like the prototypical solution in Arizona, but it's working, in the absence of David Johnson. He's going to get another probably 25 to 30 carries tonight.
Yeah.
What have you been, what has your impression of that trade? Because I thought, no change. He's not going to have any impact there.
I thought with him going to a team that strongly needed to run with a decent offensive line, especially with kind of a shaky quarterback situation, would help them out.
Right, but they had Carson Palmer at the time. Not that Carson Palmer is all-world Hall of Fame, but they have great receivers. Fitzgerald, the Brown brothers.
Absolutely.
And that sounds racist, the Brown brothers. But Jaron Brown or John Brown, both of those.
Yeah.
But he seems to just come in and just fit like that. Ellington wasn't the answer. Chris Johnson wasn't the answer.
It's like a piece of the puzzle that they needed.
Yeah, but I mean, does that piece of the puzzle? Does that piece of the puzzle put them back in the playoff race? Is that the bigger question?
I think it's a little too late for them, especially with the quarterback injuries with Drew Stanton coming in. Drew Stanton, of course, went to Michigan State. Very good college quarterback in my mind, but as an
this ain't
NFL
college, man.
But as an NFL quarterback,
but I mean, I'll give you an interesting
maybe
stat.
a D-grade starter.
Did you know that Drew Stanton actually has a winning record as a quarterback?
I do know that.
Yeah. So I mean, he's no Colin Kaepernick. Sorry, social justice warriors, but I mean, if you have a winning record as a quarterback, you got a shot. And Drew Stanton's been around the league in a few spots, if I'm not mistaken. He was in Detroit. He's been in Arizona. Yeah. I mean, he's been around the block. So I don't know. I kind of see Arizona as a sneaky playoff team if Peterson can continue to run the ball, and Stanton can just do enough not to fuck shit up.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean. In the NFL, I mean, that's all you really need. I mean, how did Mark Sanchez to survive the Jets for 3 years? He just managed the clock and let the run game of Tomlinson and Thomas Jones. I mean, they're 4-4 in that division. I mean, St. Louis, LA, the Rams aren't, they're the best team in that division, but they're not too far ahead of that division. I mean, Arizona has to go through them to get to the playoffs. But, I mean, 6-2, 4-4, 2 games out. I mean, if they can continue to play their game, I mean, there's a chance they could sneak into the wild card. I mean, I don't think
I won't put past them.
Yeah, I mean they've had a strange season, but I mean to still sit there at 4-4, they got to feel at least halfway decent. They got to like their chances at some point. I mean, at some point you've got to separate yourself. You got to figure out: am I contending or am I trying to get the best available draft pick? And I think with the trade for Peterson, the weapons they still have on offense, a halfway decent defense, I think tonight's game will determine which direction they believe they're headed.
I think so as well.
Yeah, and then you got Seattle. I mean, a team who, everybody says at home they can't be beat. Well, they got beat last week. They got beat by Washington, and they got beat by you like that Kirk Cousins. So they're sitting at 5-3. I don't think this game is as must win for them, even though it's crazy to think that they would go to 5-4 tied with Arizona. Mm-hmm. But I think that they have a lot easier of a schedule, if I'm not mistaken. Let me pull that up here, like the crack research stat to get a look at that. I think they've got a lot easier of a schedule.
On the back end.
No, I could be wrong, actually. That looks like a pretty tough gauntlet. Maybe it is. Maybe I was lying. Maybe this is more of a must-win for Seattle. I mean, you've got Arizona tonight. Mm-hmm. Then you got Atlanta. San Francisco's probably a win. You have Atlanta, Philadelphia, Jacksonville, Los Angeles, Dallas, and back to Arizona for Week 17.
It could stir up some playoff conversation of wildcard talk for either team, whether which one wins or which one loses.
Oh yeah, I'd like to. I'll raise my hand. I'd like to change my opinion on this. I think it's actually more of a. After looking at the schedule, I think it's more of a must-win for Seattle at this point. They got to go on the road to Dallas, on the road across the country to Jacksonville. They do get Atlanta, Philadelphia, and Los Angeles at home, who they've already beaten once. But I mean, you go 5-4 at this point. You can't really afford to lose 3 more games. Which I mean, between Philadelphia, Jacksonville, Los Angeles, Dallas, and Arizona again. Even Atlanta beat them last year in Seattle.
Yeah.
So you can't really afford to lose 3 more games in that division, or else you're in danger of missing the playoffs.
Yeah,
at that point,
especially as well as the defensive problems Seattle's been having.
Yeah, so you're right. The total is 6, and I'm leaning the same way you are. I'm leaning towards the Cardinals at this point. I think now that I look at it, both teams are in a must-win situation. I think the Seattle can still win this game. If you remember this game, do you remember this game last? I think it was a Thursday night game last year, when it was 12-9 in overtime, and it was kicked.
I think it was a Sunday night game.
It was a Sunday night game when there was botched field. Guys were botching 29-yard field goals.
Yeah.
12-9 in overtime. It was terrible. Oh, that was absolutely atrocious. I don't know if we're going to look at that same thing again, but you have to look at with these two teams and their defenses. You almost have to look at a play on the under in this game. So, I mean, I'm leaning with you. I wouldn't touch the total because the offenses could emerge, the defenses could play good football. I can't. With totals, I hate having to rely on both teams to do the same thing.
Yeah.
So to me, it just kind of. I would stay away from the total,
especially if the handicappers make a good line on it too.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's Vegas. They're the best in the business when it comes to the NFL.
no doubt.
So I mean, I'm going to lean Arizona with that one. We'll have some more of our best 5 picks for the weekend with NFL, and we've got a few picks for the college football slate. We'll get to those a little bit later on in the podcast. But let's take a look at some more interesting matchups that I found in the Week 10 slate. We'll start with New Orleans and Buffalo. I found that to be a kind of an interesting matchup. I mean, you got the Saints who've won 6 in a row, who seem seemingly unstoppable, and you have the Bills who, another team kind of like the Arizona Cardinals. What do they want to do? They're in the playoff race, which is always, where you want to be sitting here, going into Week 10. But at the same time, I mean, we look at the beginning of the season, they looked like they dumped off all their assets in preparation for a rebuild. So, I mean, in the AFC, there hasn't been a lot of teams stepping up. Mind you, the Patriots, Chiefs, and Steelers are obviously the cream of the crop in the AFC, but I mean, there's still 2 more wild card seats up for grabs, and I don't know, which way does Buffalo lean? Do they want to go try to get one? Sacrifice this year's draft pick, being in the late teens, early 20s, or do they want to, kind of just let the reins off of Tyrod Taylor and see where it takes them?
To me, I think they are going to try and make a run, whether it will work for them or not. That'll be in their own mindset as well as how they play.
Yeah, but I mean, making a run at this point, I mean, you got to look at the AFC East. Okay, obviously, the cream of the crop is the Patriots. Yeah, I mean, you've got Brady. They just traded off Garoppolo, which we'll get to later. So I guess they're investing stock that Brady's going to be there for, I don't know, what do you think, 2, 3, 4 more years at a high level. So with that, coupled with Belichick's genius, coupled with the fact that they can get almost any player to buy into their system at any price, I got to imagine that Buffalo, Miami, and the Jets, shouldn't really be playing for these next 2-3 years. Now, people would tell me I'm crazy, and guys who are trying to keep their jobs in the NFL would probably tell me I'm crazy as well. But, I mean, what does that get you? You get a wild card, you're the 6th seed in the playoffs, yay, congratulations, but you're going to go out first round, and now you've sacrificed a top 5, top 10 pick, and now you're picking 19th. And I know the objective is to win, but, I mean, is it always?
I mean, Buffalo's got a pretty big fan base from what I've heard, and it would make a very important swing of things for them as a franchise to make the playoffs this year.
Yeah, I mean, okay, they haven't made the playoffs in 17 years, but big deal, so what? They make a wild card game that's on the road, they lose. What, Bills Mafia goes a little crazy, breaks some tables, and that's it? I mean, I don't know if that's worth moving down 10 slots in a draft class that's supposed to be pretty loaded with talent this year. I mean, call me crazy, but I don't know. I think Buffalo, I think New Orleans is a better team in this game, but
I think so too.
I think Buffalo's defense is good enough to surprise people, and their offense is just good enough to get by. I mean, you got Shady McCoy; he's a fantastic runner. We'll see. I mean, it's a battle of interesting teams. I mean, New Orleans seemed dead in the water this year. They started off 0-2, and everybody wrote them off. I mean, in the South, I don't think you can write anybody off. Nobody in the South's that good. So, New Orleans now sits atop at 6-2. I mean, how long can they keep this run going? I mean, Drew Brees has found the fountain of youth again, and he's found a crop of receivers and 2 running backs that can. I think that's the key: is the running game. The running game hasn't been existent there since. I mean, Pierre Thomas, Deuce McAllister. They've had a 5-year stretch where there's been no running game. I mean, Mark Ingram's been there the whole time. All of a sudden, he's found his running shoes all of a sudden, and him and Kamara, that 1-2 tandem has been, kind of the backbone to Drew Brees' resurgence. Not that he's ever really taken a dip, but he's been, now his team is winning. I mean, where do you place more stock on the two-headed monster in the backfield, or the improvement of the defense? I mean, the defense hasn't improved that much in my mind, but they're playing in the giving only up 20 points a game versus giving the 34 points a game.
That's a huge difference of 2 scores.
Yeah, I mean, Drew Brees is good for 30, but if he has to be good for 35 every week, it's not always the case.
No, I think the run game has a lot to do with that, as well as game management, keeping the defense off the field, keeping the clock running, letting Drew Brees open up with his passing game a little more as well.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see what happens with that game. That's one of the more interesting games in my opinion. I also like the Minnesota and Washington. That one's a good one for me. I mean, Washington's coming off a huge high and running over to Seattle and beating them on their turf. Anytime anybody can do that in the last 5-7 years, it's been hard to do, and it's been impressive. You're absolutely right. I mean, Tom Brady hasn't done it, Aaron Rodgers hasn't done it, but Kirk Cousins has done it. So I think he's just staking his claim to be the $30 million quarterback, man. So you look at that game; it's back in Washington. It's a 10 a.m. Pacific start, 1 p.m. East Coast start. But you have two teams that obviously are vying for playoff spots. They're ready to win now. But you have Minnesota, who just announced that Teddy Bridgewater's coming off the injured reserve, or coming off the unable to play, list. And obviously he's not going to play this week. But you have Case Keenum, who's guided this team. If I'm not mistaken, I want to say they are 6-2. Yeah. So you look at a 6-2 ball club that's pretty much been their third-string quarterback. A little bit of smoke, a little bit of mirrors. They've lost Dalvin Cook for the year, and they've made it work with McKinnon and Murray. I mean, this team's something that can be a legitimate force, not only in the North, but actually in the playoff picture.
If they stay healthy, they've got to win and have a good seed, I think, to make a good case in the playoffs.
But, I mean, they haven't been healthy. I mean, like I just said, Bradford went down. Bridgewater's been out since 2015. Dalvin Cook was having a great rookie season. He went down. I mean, you look at your receivers, you've got Thielen, Diggs, and Rudolph. I mean, not necessarily looking like an all-Madden team this year. So, I mean, staying healthy, obviously, who has to stay healthy? If Keenum goes down, you can try Bridgewater, but, I mean, it seems like it's just plug and play for those guys all out in New England. The defense has been great. I'm sure the MVP of this season so far has been Anthony Barr for the defense, and Packers fans will tell you that. I mean, they just seem like a smoke and mirror team. Are they real? I mean, I think this is a good test for them because Washington's been playing really well. They're kind of a roller coaster team, but overall they play solid football. Kirk Cousins is a good option. They don't really have a running game. But Rob Kelly's coming along. He had 2 touchdowns last week. But, I mean, Josh Doxson, player we'll talk about a little later in the show, has been kind of emerging, up and coming. Terrell Pryor's been non-existent. That match has just not been working.
Yeah.
I don't know which way to lean on this side. I mean, the way I look at it, I mean, it's not one of my 5 picks that I would bet I'd take to the window. But the way I look at it is, if I'm looking at 2 teams that I just can't put my mind on, do I just take? Is this a spot where you just take the home team?
In this case, for me, I think it's more of a must-win for Minnesota more than Washington, even though they have a 2-game lead in the NFC North.
Well, I mean, Detroit's obviously a hot team, but I mean, Washington, I feel like they're 4-4. They've got to win.
They do have to win as well. I think this is more important with seeding for Minnesota if they can win and keep up the momentum going.
So you're saying Washington more than likely is not a playoff team at this point? I mean, obviously the Eagles are 8-1. That's going to be a tough catch for anybody else in the East. But I mean, I feel like Washington's staring down the barrel of if we don't make the playoffs, and if Kirk doesn't think he has the tools to win here,
they're going to have to go through a rebuild.
Well, he's gone.
Yeah.
I mean, he's gone. I mean, they've already been fucking janking around with his contract situation. I mean, I'm sure he's not the most comfortable playing on 1-year deals, even though those 1-year deals are $23 million each. But, I mean, at some point in time, I mean, you know it, I know it, and you go in your job. I mean, you want stability in your job. You want to know that, if you one false slip, you're not going to get fired, or you're not going to get the next guy up who takes your spot.
Yeah, it's a cut-through contract.
I understand that. I mean, I get that. I mean, obviously he's proving himself to be worthy of this type of money. Mm-hmm. And, I mean, his situation is a lot more cloudy now because Shanahan just picked up Garoppolo.
Yeah.
So, I mean, where does he go? I mean, maybe Washington now thinks that he can, they have a little bit more leverage with San Francisco addressing their quarterback situation. But I don't know. This just seems to me like a team, that wants to win now to prove to their quarterback that that he belongs there and he's the one who's going to help them lead them back to, glory days, or however you want to put it. I got to lean Washington with this one.
Okay.
I got to lean. I mean, like you said, Minnesota's got a 2-game lead. This might be the last week we see Case Keenum. At some point in time, I feel like he has to look human, and what better time on the East Coast in Washington. I think their defense just doesn't do enough against Kirk Cousins. I think Kirk Cousins beats him. I think Washington can cover that.
I can see that as well, too. It's kind of a coin flip game to me.
Yeah, I mean,
like you said, you want to take it to the window, but
yeah, I wouldn't go to the window. I would lean Washington. Yeah,
definitely a game to watch.
Yeah, for sure. Green Bay and Chicago seems like a toilet bowl to me.
It does.
But I look at that line, and how the fuck is Chicago giving anyone 5 points? I don't care who you are. Chicago should not be giving anyone 5 points.
Not with the offensive line troubles that they've been having.
That being said, I'm not touching this game, but I still might take the 5. I might give you the 5 points.
I probably want to take the 5.
I mean, Brett Hundley has shown. I mean, don't get me wrong. You're a Detroit guy. Your defense is not that good.
It's very shaky right now.
Yeah, and he did nothing with that against that defense at home. He and the running game were just absolute dog shit. And I wanted Brett Hundley to succeed because I just felt like, I like a guy who only wears the one chin strap. And that's been the Rodgers, Favre, Hundley saga for the last 20-something years. The one chin strap. It's vintage.
Yeah.
I wanted him to succeed. It just doesn't look like... in 3 years in this system, what does that say about McCarthy developing Aaron Rodgers, but he can't do anything with Hundley after 3 games? It's a small sample size, but, he hasn't gotten better. He hasn't found reads. He just looks like he's consistently just not improving.
Yeah, he almost seems like he's going downhill.
Yeah, and you're telling me I got to go Trubisky versus Hundley? Chicago's defense has actually been playing a lot better recently, and they're at home. I could see this being, 20-13. I can see them covering 5 points. I can see them winning by a touchdown. I just don't think I can walk to the window and place a bet on that one myself either.
I absolutely agree.
Then you got Dallas, and you got Atlanta. That is, my opinion, the most intriguing matchup of this week.
As well as I was thinking. That is my pick of the game of the week.
You have Dallas, who sits there at 5-3, and you have Atlanta, who sits there at 4-4. I think this game means more to Atlanta, but I don't know if that fire and intensity is necessarily enough to beat the talent of Dallas, even at home. They haven't been very good at home. They've only won 1 game. So you look at their home situation, and I guess they want the Georgia Dome back because Mercedes-Benz has not been kind to them. So you have a Dallas team coming in who has Super Bowl aspirations. Let's break it down. Do we still have a distraction on our hands with the Dallas Cowboys?
I think so.
You think so? I don't know. Zeke Elliott is out for the game, barring some miracle, but it's happened before. Barring some miracle, he'll be, out for 6 weeks. He seems to keep getting these injunctions that keep allowing him to play. But that offensive line, does that offensive line make Zeke look good, or is Zeke a good running back as it is?
I think both, but I think the more important thing is the offensive line.
Yeah, so now you have Alfred Morris, Darren McFadden, and Rod Smith, 3 running backs. I don't know a lot about Rod Smith, but 2 running backs who have done good things behind that line. So I don't know. It seems to me that if Dallas loses this game, they become 5-4. We're talking about Washington potentially winning. They become 5-4.
Could shake up some things on the NFC side.
Yeah, the Atlanta Falcons just seem to have this hangover, which, it seems to be happening for all Super Bowl losing teams, not just ones who blow 25-point leads. It just doesn't seem to work out for them. I don't know what's going on. Colin Cowherd has my favorite theory with, players. You take their best season, you take their worst season, you cancel those out. Everything in between is kind of the quarterback you get. And that's the situation with Matt Ryan. Last year, he was the MVP. He had a great season. His stats were elevated. His quarterback rating was elevated. You take his worst season, which was probably around his rookie year. You take those out, he's just been average the rest of his career. So I think, everybody who, still tried to jump on Atlanta's bandwagon is probably, eating a little bit of crow right there. But you have the 4-4 Atlanta Falcons. You have the 5-3 Dallas Cowboys without Ezekiel Elliott. I didn't have this in my 5 picks. Actually, I did have this in my 5 picks, so I'm going to walk up to the window. And when I walk up to the window, after everything I just said, I am going to lay the 2.5 and take Atlanta at home.
I would do the same.
It seems like a weird spot, but it to me it feels like more of a must-win for Atlanta than it does for Dallas. It's just a strange situation where
Atlanta needs kind of a pick-me-up at this time, and what better than against Dallas?
Well, that plus I think Dallas is too distracted with Jerry Jones and with Ezekiel Elliott. So I think Atlanta gets the field goal on the road, which is basically tells me it's an even matchup. You know, I think Atlanta wins not on the road, at home. I think Atlanta wins this matchup. Then we have the Sunday night game, which is to me not as interesting as a game as it would have been 10 weeks ago. Denver's really fallen off the wayside. And they're getting 8.5 points in this game to New England. A couple of quick things I notice as I follow the Pats. Tom Brady's never won in Denver, whether it be regular season or AFC Championship. The last time he was in Denver, he lost to Brock Osweiler in the snow. Everything to me shakes Denver's way, except for the fact that for the last 4 weeks, Denver has played like a dumpster fire.
That's kind of an understatement, but yeah.
I mean, they went in. I went with them last week. I took the 7.5 points like a sucker, and I think Philadelphia just scored again.
I won't be surprised.
So, I mean, that's the big caveat. Is the weird thing about the NFL is week to week, matchup to matchup. Yeah, they lost 51 to 20 last week.
Yeah, 51-23.
Yeah, but I mean that almost has no bearing on this week. This is Patriots week. This is Patriots week for the Denver Broncos. They get them coming in at home. It's about ready to get real cold. It's real cold in Denver, and so I understand New England is a Northeast team, but it's not as cold on the East Coast right now, so they're not practicing in that weather.
It's a lot more brisk in Denver.
Yeah, I mean, you're a mile high. You got the weather problems.
I think I hear a blizzard coming through.
I mean, Denver's 3-5. So I would imagine effectively they don't win this game, they're out of the playoff hunt. Obviously, New England can still win this, still lose this game and be okay.
With the division Denver's in, it's either win now or wait until next year.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, you've already given up on Trevor Siemian. You have Paxton Lynch, but apparently he's not ready to go, whether it be with his injury or the fact that he's just young. I mean, John Elway, if you're John Elway and they lose this game, you're 3-6, do you effectively tank the season at this point? But do you go for a quarterback? You don't know what you have in Paxton Lynch, except of what he's shown you in preseason, which wasn't much. And you know what you've got in Siemian and Osweiler, which also isn't much. I don't know. It's a weird situation. I mean,
if you're Elway, you're better off playing quarterback for this game than Osweiler, in my mind.
Yeah, I mean, Osweiler had a stretch of good games, obviously, in the Super Bowl run, but he just hasn't been able to duplicate that success. I look at this game, it's one of my best 5 for the weekend. I take Denver. My money goes on Denver in the window. I think they're in desperation mode. I think their defense is still good enough to get to Tom Brady. And maybe not win this game, but maybe keep it to between 3 to 8 points.
I can see that as well, but this is one I would not take to the window myself.
Mm-hmm. Well, we're going to match up picks for the weekend here. I've already given you 2 of mine. My best 5 for the weekend. Let me know if you like them. But my best 5 for the weekend, I like Denver, as I mentioned earlier, getting the 8.5. I took Atlanta as well, getting minus the 2.5. My Cleveland Browns fandom was quick and painless. So I think I'm going to lay your Lions 13.5. I'm going to lay your Lions with 13.5. I'm probably stupid for doing that because the Lions are the Lions. And as Cleveland is bad, Detroit does some pretty funky things too, even though they're playing pretty well this year. My favorite pick of the weekend is... You ready for this?
Yeah.
My favorite pick of the weekend is for the 49ers to get off the schneid. I'm taking San Francisco's money line, and they're getting out of the over column. I think since they got Garoppolo, they're like, we don't need no quarterback, so we don't need to pick first. So we're going to win this game against the Giants. I mean, the Giants are just as much of a dumpster fire as any other team down there. And if I'm not mistaken, they'd be smart to start tanking their season too. I think San Francisco is going to get the win at home. And I couldn't find a fifth straight-up pick I liked, so I went with a two-team teaser. I took Seattle, took them down to basically a pick 'em at plus a half point. And I coupled that with Buffalo getting 8.5 points at home. I think at some point New Orleans has got to cool off. Not saying they're going to lose the game, but I think at some point New Orleans is going to cool off and play an actual close game, and I think Buffalo's going to do that for them. So I'm taking Seattle plus a half point and Buffalo plus 8.5 points.
I like Buffalo plus 8.5, but I'm not sure with the Seattle. I still think they have a chance to lose outright.
Well, sure, but I mean, if you're giving me them on a neutral field, you're giving them 50-50. I mean, it seemed like a good bet to me, but I understand what you're saying. Yeah, they have a chance to get their doors beaten by 17 points, but
yeah,
Drew Stanton just doesn't seem like that kind of guy. He seems like he's on my side. He'll let him hang around.
Keep them in the game, be like a field goal kind of game.
Yeah. All right, so those are my 5 best picks. I got Denver 8.5, Detroit laying 13.5, Atlanta laying 2.5, San Francisco to win the game straight up, and my 2-team 6-point teaser. Seattle basically pick 'em, and Buffalo plus 8.5. What do you got for this weekend?
This week, my top 5 picks. Like I said, I like the Cardinals plus the points this week, 6.5. Also, I like the Lions minus 12, even though they can't score touchdowns.
Minus 12? Where did you find minus 12? I found 13.5.
Wait, no.
Hey, William Hill now. Yeah, I saw 13.5. That's why I liked the hook. Now I feel better. If it's 12, I might jump on it now.
Saw as low as 9 in the beginning of the week before the Monday night game even. Do like the Bears minus the points as well against the Packers. I think Hugley's not the quarterback situation prospect to Aaron Rodgers as Rodgers was to Favre.
Yeah, that's an understatement. What else you got?
Falcons minus the points. I think, this being said, more of a must-win game for Atlanta. They're going to show up on Sunday for once, even though the Chick-fil-A is closed down there.
Yeah, I remember when they first announced that. That's a weird thing. Hey, there's a Chick-fil-A inside Mercedes-Benz Dome.
Yeah.
That's only available on college football matchups.
And I am leaning towards you taking the San Francisco money line. I think the Giants are going to start tanking and tanking hard.
Well, yeah, I mean, Eli's done. It's time to go scout these quarterbacks that they have coming out with DeRozan, Darnold, and Josh Allen, excuse me. Yeah, I mean, it's going to be an interesting Week 10 matchups. There's some definitely playoff implications starting to unfold, and then you already start seeing, the tanking going on. So, but like we were talking about earlier, it's just past halfway through the season, and if you had to crown an MVP right now, who would get your spot? If the season ended right now, who would be your MVP?
As of right now, with all the injuries and all that, was originally going to be Deshaun Watson in my mind, but with him being injured now, I'm leaning towards Carson Wentz.
Yeah, Carson's been playing out of his mind.
He's top 5 in yards as well as passer rating. His completion percentage is 16.5. Touchdown interceptor ratio is 23-5. He's got 2,200 plus yards right now.
Yeah, he's definitely carried that team on his shoulders because they don't really have a running game until Ajayi showed up. And even then, he had a decent game. He had one long run.
Yeah.
Their receivers aren't anything, to write home about. Alshon Jeffrey's a good receiver, but he hasn't really been in the mix with that team. Yeah, I mean, I listed off a few candidates in myself. I had the Watson, Fournette, Alex Smith, Brady, Wentz, Elliott. I had guys like that who obviously, we'll see Elliott's value in the next 6 weeks. We'll see what Prescott can do.
Yeah.
But my MVP has been Drew Brees.
Drew Brees?
Yeah, he started off the season pretty tough, but he's brought it off 6 straight wins. It's hard to say Drew Brees because he looks right now exactly like he looks every year.
Yeah.
But, my MVP is Drew Brees because of his defense. So it's almost like a proxy MVP. The way his defense is playing, I can't give 11 MVPs. So the way his defense is playing has made his traditional play look that much better.
Yeah, it's...
So if I had to hand out an MVP right now, every year it'd be Brady, and you could say the system situation, but I think right now my MVP has got to be Drew Brees, and like you said, it's a proxy MVP because the way his defense is finally allowing him to get the recognition for actually winning games. I mean, Drew Brees, he throws for 400 or 500 yards, 3-4 touchdowns a week, but in a loss.
Yeah, and gets like 5,000 yards a year easily.
Yes. So now that his defense is actually playing up to par, I think his valuable nature is showing, and that's who I would hand my MVP to at this point, if I had to hand an MVP out.
And you can never count out Tom Brady out of that talk as well.
No, I mean, Deshaun Watson could have stolen it the way he'd been playing.
Yeah.
Carson Wentz is not a bad pick. Carson Wentz has been just lighting the world on fire this year. And I bet the Cleveland Browns are kicking themselves for trading away from that one. What about the Rookie of the Year?
Rookie of the Year?
I mean, yeah, the easy pick, in my opinion, would have been Watson. But, I mean...
It would have been Watson, but with him being out, I'm leaning towards Kareem Hunt now. More.
Yeah, Kareem Hunt's got 800 yards, 4 touchdowns.
800 yards rushing, 300-plus receiving. As well, another running back I would say is Fournette, is in that talk as well.
Yeah, Fournette. I mean, you got a lot of guys. A lot of good rookies this year. You got Deshaun Watson. Obviously, unfortunately, his season's over, and we're going to be relegated to the what if until 2018. But
yeah,
Fournette, you talked about. Kareem Hunt. I want to say Lamar Hunt. That's not right. No. Evan Ingram's been playing well, even despite the fact the Giants stink. Dalvin Cook was another one who was playing really well until he got injured. You got Juju Smith-Schuster, who's had a good couple of weeks. Joe Mixon, who's coming on. Alvin Kamara. A lot of good rookies making some impact. My Rookie of the Year, actually, when Watson went down, since you took Hunt and I have to give it to somebody else, I'm going to say it was Alvin Kamara. I think Alvin Kamara has been playing really well in even the fact that he's a backup role, he still has a great impact as a rookie. And, running backs becoming really kind of a second fiddle to the offenses now. Kamara's been able to insert himself immediately, which is actually what ran Peterson out of town.
Yeah.
I mean, if I had to give it out, I would say Hunt and Kamara have been. It sucks because Watson's a runaway, but
yeah.
But Hunt and Kamara, and Fournette's been doing some crazy things too. But when Fournette decided to make a boneheaded move and miss a game, I handed mine to Kamara.
Like that pick as well.
Yeah, I also like it because he wears a nose ring when he plays football. I think that's pretty cool.
It's pretty badass.
Yeah, I think so. I always feel like that's going to get ripped out.
Yeah.
I know he has a face mask, and I know it's up in his nose, and he's probably wearing a chin strap and a mouth. I just feel like someone's going to get the right angle and just
knock it out one day.
Rip it out. Like when Dez wears those freaking earrings, those big-ass diamond earrings. I'm like, why? What good is it? You've got a helmet on. Nobody can see your big-ass bling. And the only thing that can happen is you get one ripped out of your ear. Is that really what you want?
Or you get hit the right way and just jams and to the side of
I mean, Deion used to play like that. He used to play with the hoops. You remember that when Deion played with the hoops? I don't know. It just, to me, it doesn't seem safe. I mean, if you're wearing that kind of jewelry, like, you got a helmet on, nobody can see that shit. It can't do any good for you. I don't know. It's just kind of weird to me. But, well, that's their decision. It's the same with the guys who wear the dreads.
Yeah.
The guys who wear the dreads, you can wear them, but they're going to get pulled.
Yeah.
I mean, if I
you could get tackled by them.
If I have to tackle you and I have to take you down some way, somehow, I'm pulling the fucking dreads.
Oh, absolutely.
So,
number one, it's not only going to slow you down, but it's a good thing to grip on.
Yeah. I mean, it's the way to get you down if I have to get you down. I mean, Ricky Williams used to complain about that shit all the time.
Yeah. If you don't like it, don't wear them.
Yeah. What about breakout potential candidates in the second half of the regular season? A couple guys I'm looking forward to seeing. I think Josh Doxson is coming along with the Skins. He's starting to make his mark as one of Kirk Cousins' more favorite receivers. Him and Crowder. Pryor's kind of fallen by the wayside, but him and Crowder have been taking over the reins as the go-to targets. What do you think of Josh Doxson? I mean, his capability and his ability going forward to help the Redskins.
I think that'll be a player that they lean towards if they decide to make a playoff run, without a doubt. Yeah,
he definitely can add. He's a burner, and that's the thing. I mean, they need the guy to take the top off the defense, and he's had a couple of cases of the drops, but I'm interested in seeing him going forward. I think Sterling Shepard is another guy. Whoever they decide to put in quarterback, they decide to bench Eli and go with Geno. Geno's been working with Sterling Shepard as Sterling was hurt. Mm-hmm. Sterling Shepard, I think, is another guy. And I'm not talking about just fantasy. Fantasy, obviously, if they break out, it's going to be big for fantasy. But
yeah,
I think guys who can help their teams. I mean, Sterling Shepard, I know that he probably can't help the team, but I think he can keep butts in the seats with excitement. Because Odell's gone. Brandon Marshall's gone. if Eli's gone, then we're looking at Geno Smith. I mean, if you're a Giants fan, good God, you really want to show up to the stadium?
Yeah, I'd rather almost be a Browns fan.
Let's pump the brakes on that. But, yeah, I think Sterling Shepard has a chance to break out, and he is on my fantasy team, so I'm hoping he breaks out. Dion Lewis seems like a guy for the last 3 years with the Pats. Plays really well, gets injured. It seems this year they're kind of almost in the hold him for 6 weeks, keep him healthy, keep him fresh, and then let's run him down everybody's throats for the last 8-9 weeks of the season. I think he has a chance to break out. Who knows what Patriots running backs, the fucking, whatever Bill Belichick's thinking. They got 4 great running backs. They got White, they got Burkhead, they got Gillislee, they got Dion Lewis. But I think if I'm trying to get inside Bill Belichick's mind, I think that was his plan. Dion got hurt in the Super Bowl last year, and I think his plan was the Roger Clemens approach. Let's sit him out till week 6, 7, midway through the season, keep his legs fresh, and let's run him down everybody's throats to the playoff stretch.
Yeah, make sure he's 100% healthy before he's a go. And
yeah, I mean, you remember when Roger Clemens, at the tail end of his career, he's like, I'm not coming in until July.
Yeah.
And everybody was like, fine by me, here's $20 million,
Yep. Oh.
But he was worth it.
Oh, absolutely.
He was worth sitting out until July if your team was still in the playoff race. I look at a guy who just got traded to the Bears, Dontrell Inman. He came from the Chargers. I think he's got to be automatically inserted as the number 1 receiver. They've just been dog shit in Chicago. I mean, Kendall Wright's been nothing. Kevin White's out for the year. Cam Meredith's been out for the year the whole time. Trubisky needs somebody to develop with, and I think Inman might be that guy. I look at the Finns combo, 2-headed monster running backs of Damian Williams and Kenyon Drake. I think that they got a really good shot at making Dolphins fans forget about Jay. Kenyon's going to be more of the scat back kind of guy, but Damian Williams can catch out of the backfield. He's a big target. I mean, if the Finns really are interested in making the playoffs, I think those two guys are going to have to get on the same page, and I think they will. I think they'll have second half breakout potential.
I can see that as well. I see them being more of a Theo Riddick style kind of player.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, that's
a lot more screen passes and can rush as well as rush after receiving.
Yeah, they both can run the ball, and they both are pretty good receivers. And, Miami's offensive line's not that great, so their running game might be effectively short screen passes, and both of those guys can do that. So.
Yeah.
You talked about being a Browns fan. You'd rather be a Browns fan than watch Geno Smith show up to the stadium if they decide to go tanking mode.
At least you know what to expect in Cleveland.
Well, as your new Browns fandom, I think potentially one of your second half breakout candidates could be Josh Gordon. That's going to be a weird one. I hope he breaks out. I like the guy. I mean, he's an idiot, but I like the guy.
I would like to see that as well. The Browns need something to look forward to.
Yeah, I mean, if he comes back, remember, they stunk when he was there, but remember how exciting he was?
Oh, yeah.
He had dog shit for quarterbacks, and he was still putting up 1,700 yards in 15 games. I mean,
that's unbelievable thinking that was from Browns player.
But the question is, I don't know if you saw the story he came out with that he was either high or drunk before or during every game. So now if he's 3 years removed from a game, almost 3 years removed, if I'm not mistaken. I think he hasn't played since 14.
That sounds about right.
He can't get high or drunk before the game. Is he going to be worth it in the game?
I don't know.
That's going to be an interesting thing. I think Josh Gordon is a talented receiver, and if he can get back by week 12, the last 5 weeks of the season will be pretty fun. But man, the Browns. I mean, Josh Gordon bringing back some excitement to the Browns. Hopefully, that's what I'm looking forward to out of Browns football for the last 5 weeks of the season.
We'll definitely give them something to watch. Maybe put 10 people in their seats.
Well, yeah, but could you imagine if Josh Gordon was getting passes from A.J. McCarron and not the steaming pile of garbage that is their depth chart at quarterback?
It would be a whole lot different situation, and they might make a difference in a couple games.
What do you make of that situation? I mean, I talk about Lions being Lions just because you're a Lions fan, but I mean, Brown's gonna Brown. I mean, which side do you sit on? I mean, there's been two sides of the story. There's been the side that the Browns were celebrating the trade of A.J. McCarron and they forgot to turn in the paperwork, so no more A.J. McCarron. And then there's the other side where Hugh Jackson and I guess other people believe that the front office sabotaged the trade. I mean, obviously they've come out, GM's come out and vehemently denied that that's the case. But I mean, are you buying that? I don't know if I'm buying that.
I'm not sure. I think there's a lot wrong with that organization, whether it's the front office as well as the coaching staff.
Yeah, but I mean, they make a lot of bad decisions when it comes to drafting and coaching and signing and stuff. But I'd like to give them the benefit of the doubt and say they're not so stupid to celebrate a trade that they haven't faxed the league yet.
I wouldn't put it past them, though.
Yeah, but I mean, the guys in that front office have been around the NFL, and they know how time works. I would imagine they know how time works. I got to get a trade in by 4. I got to imagine that Hugh Jackson came to the front office and said, what's his name, Sashi Brown or whatever the heck his name is. I got to imagine he came to him and said, I'm going to get A.J. McCarron for a 2nd and 3rd round pick. And Sashi Brown was like, no the fuck you're not. I could have had Garoppolo for a 2nd round, and now you're giving me A.J. McCarron for a 2nd and 3rd. No, not a chance. Especially when it does nothing for them this year, and they're probably looking forward to drafting some. I don't know. To me, I'm just not buying they were partying at 357 all the way to 402 and go, oh shit, what did I do? No, I don't buy it.
No,
I mean, yeah, it's the Browns thing to do, but I like to give the staff the benefit of the doubt and say they're not that fucking stupid.
I would sure hope so.
Would you have given a 2nd and 3rd for A.J. McCarron, knowing that Garoppolo went for just a 2nd?
No. Me as an organization, I would not have done that trade.
That's what I'm saying. I mean, 2nd and 3rd round picks aren't just necessarily throwaways. You're throwing away a 6th round pick. You're throwing away probably a 5th round, maybe a 4th round for a guy. I mean,
you never know what can be.
Bill threw a 4th round away for Brandy Moss. It worked out. But you're not throwing 2nd and 3rd round picks away for a backup quarterback. Picks are valuable. And I don't understand that. I'd rather have success in the NFL than potential in the NFL. But that's just me. But I don't still think I would give away a 2nd and a 3rd for McCarron when I can potentially even get him on the open market. But we talked about Garoppolo earlier and just now. He went to the San Francisco 49ers for just a 2nd round pick, which to me seems crazy because 6 months ago he was untouchable.
Yeah. I was surprised how that trade went down. I was watching Monday Night Football when I found out about it, and to me, I don't see him touching the ball this year.
Well, that was my first, when I looked at it, I said, is there any incentive for him to even play this season? He can get as much, work off the field, not having to get destroyed by defenses every week. I mean, Kyle Shanahan knows what he's doing. Kyle Shanahan's proven it with Matt Ryan. He's proven it with other quarterbacks in the past. Brock Osweiler. No, not Brock Osweiler. Yeah, was it Brock Osweiler? Was he in Denver when... or not Brock Osweiler, excuse me, Kirk Cousins.
Yeah.
Kirk Cousins. I was thinking somebody else in Denver. Mike McCoy was in Denver with Osweiler. But, I was thinking, there's not really an incentive. They're 0-9, or 0-8, 0-9, whatever they are, but
0-8, 0-9, and something around there.
So, to me, you're right. I don't see any incentive for him to play this season.
No, if I was the 49ers, I would keep him off the field and have him ready for next year.
Yeah. No, I agree with that. However, if you're Jimmy Garoppolo, you're going to be an unrestricted free agent at the end of the year, right? I mean, you have the opportunity to sign somewhere else if you decide. Mm-hmm. You have that as leverage. But if you actually get into a game this year and you have like a Matt Flynn type game, what's the going rate for Garoppolo? You think in this market right now with 2 games of experience? I think he's probably going to make anywhere from 17 to 20.
Yeah, I would lean towards the lower of that. I was thinking more 15 to 18.
Like Mike Glennon money.
Yeah, maybe a step above.
So that's the question. So you're thinking in the 15 to 18 range. You're Jimmy Garoppolo. If I get on the field, obviously there's risk involved. If I get on the field and have 2, 3, 4 great games, don't you think I can push my value up to 20, 22?
I can see that, but with San Francisco's offensive line right now, is it really worth the chance?
Yeah, I mean, if I'm Garoppolo, I got to look at it. See, I've waited 3 years to prove myself, and when I've had a chance, I have proven myself. I don't think Garoppolo can hurt himself. I think if Garoppolo goes out there 2-3 weeks and just has average or stinkers, he can blame it on the offensive line. He can blame it on the lack of talent in San Francisco.
I could see that as well, yeah.
But if he has good games or great games and leads them to victories or leads them to, close defeats.
Yeah, like if I end up with a field goal.
Yeah, I mean, I think he can only make his case better. I don't know if he can necessarily make his case worse. And that, San Francisco's going to roll out the checkbook for him because that's why they traded a second-round pick.
Yeah.
They're not going to trade a second-round pick and let him just walk without making an attempt.
Yeah.
But if they come at him with $18 million and a team like I can't think of anything off the top of my head, like the Chargers maybe, who are getting ready to move on from Phillip Rivers, come at him with 24, 25. I mean, what do? You're in California. You're going to pay the same amount of tax.
Yeah.
But now you just made $6 million more a year for 4 or 5 more years. You're just adding $30 million to your contract.
I would switch over to LA.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing.
It's a no-brainer to me.
At first, my first instinct was, is there any incentive for him to play? And I thought no, because that's if his mindset is, I'm going to sign whatever San Francisco puts in my face. Mm-hmm. Well, that's not the way everybody thinks.
No.
So the more I think about it, I think there is an incentive for him to play this weekend, or not this weekend, but this season. And I think that his play increases his leverage. I don't think it can hurt him because I think, like I said, I think if he plays poorly for 4 weeks or whatever,
you can blame it on all the weapons.
You can blame it on all the external factors, and he'll still get a contract worthy of Mike Glennon money.
Yeah. I can see that as well, yeah.
And we talked about Bridgewater earlier, and his impact on Minnesota's, and Mike Zimmer's kind of decision making. What do you do if you're Mike Zimmer in that spot?
If I were Minnesota, I'd probably keep Keenum in.
Yeah, I mean, that seems like the logical play. It ain't broke, right? I mean,
no, he's performing pretty well, giving them the wins. That's what they absolutely need right now. So,
but now, what if you go to Washington and you kind of have a yucker and Keenum doesn't play great? Now you're starting to open up the question marks, because Teddy's ready. Yeah, that's a good shirt. Teddy's ready.
Yeah.
Teddy's ready to go, but Keenum's only, he only had one bad game.
Yeah.
I agree. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. But when it starts to leak, when do you make that switch, or do you at all? I mean, what's Keenum's leash at this point? Obviously, he's going to play this game, regardless.
If he has a nightmare game, you could see looking towards Teddy Thanksgiving against the Lions. But if he has a moderate game and they still lose, I think they'll still start Keenum.
Yeah, I mean, what do you do for Keenum's confidence? What if Teddy goes down again? Now you just got Keenum just looping in and out of the.
Yeah.
I mean, he's a professional. He's going to play. He's going to take it all in stride. He gets it. But I mean, if you have to rely on Keenum, in the postseason,
it's not looking that comfortable.
Yeah, I mean, Bridgewater's return kind of puts a weird cloud over Minnesota, but I think it's right. If it ain't broke, don't fix it.
I would say keep Bridgewater on the sidelines right now. Get him even stronger, get him more ready, even though he's ready to go. Maybe another week or two on the sidelines won't help.
Yeah, I mean, Week 10 slate, that's going to be pretty interesting. I mean, let's switch over to the boys that don't get paid, by the teams. You got 3 out of the top 4 playoff teams in action against ranked opponents. You got Notre Dame going against Miami. You've got Bama going against Mississippi State. And you've got the University of Georgia squaring off in Auburn. It's going to be an interesting weekend because there's a lot of playoff implications on the line. TCU, Oklahoma, a battle of 2 teams just sitting right outside the playoff. I think one of those teams can state a huge case for, getting into that top 4.
Yeah.
What are your initial thoughts on the first 2 weeks of the playoff? Obviously, not changing. You've got UGA number 1, you got Bama number 2, Notre Dame number 3, and you got Clemson number 4. Basically, you've got 2 conferences representing the playoffs. When I'm under the impression that the goal of this was to have 4 strong conferences represented. Obviously, anytime Notre Dame's good, that throws a wrench into those plans. But
yeah.
I mean, it just seems very weird to me. If one of those SEC teams loses 1 game, I mean, do you put them out of the playoff?
Depends who they lose to, how much they lose by. It's all right now up to the president of the playoff committee, to my mind. Even if you are winless, like Miami or Wisconsin, Or undefeated league.
Yeah, if you're winless, you're not really staring at any kind of playoff implications.
Undefeated like Miami or Wisconsin right now.
Yeah, I mean...
You still, to the committee's eyes, need some work or more impressive wins.
And that's the thing. I mean, they're saying that Clemson, who plays effectively an ACC schedule, not effectively, they play an ACC schedule. Mm-hmm. They did schedule Auburn out of conference and beat them.
Yes.
But, I mean, Miami's playing almost the same teams. Miami played Florida State. Clemson's going to play Florida State this weekend. You know, Clemson lost to Syracuse as a heavy favorite.
Yeah, that was a big shocker.
So, I mean, you know, I listen to these guys on the radio. They're like, okay, you got UGA, you got a one-loss or undefeated UGA, still keep a one-loss UGA. You have Notre Dame, they lost at home to Georgia.
Yeah.
You have Clemson lost to Syracuse. You know, you have Oklahoma who lost. Who did they lose to? They lost to Iowa State. You know, who's shown to be a decent team, but they're not lighting the world on fire. You know, if I'm Miami, I'm Wisconsin. I'd be pretty pissed if I'm an undefeated team right now, and I'm not even being considered. And
you're not even
really being considered being for the playoffs. You've got a one-loss. You've got 3 one-loss teams ahead of you.
Yeah, and a couple of 2-loss teams within reach.
Yeah, I mean, 2-loss teams realistically this year. If you're at 2 losses,
you shouldn't be in the talk, but you might.
Well, it's not that you shouldn't be in the talk. It's just that you're not going to be considered with 2 losses while teams are undefeated.
Yeah.
So, like, if Miami goes up against, I don't know who a 2-loss team in the top 10 is, but if Miami's up against a top 10 team with 2 losses, I don't think anybody's in the top 10 with 2 losses, but
I know there's a few just outside, but
right, yeah. I mean, those teams don't have realistic implications. I mean, the closest 2-loss team is Auburn.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, Auburn beats Georgia this weekend. It could be interesting, but I don't think a 2-loss team, unless somehow they run the table, they beat Georgia, they beat Bama, and win the SEC championship. But even then, it's like, even a 2-loss SEC team, that'd be an interesting conversation that we'll have. You know, if we have to have that, 3 weeks down the line, that would be an interesting conversation to have. A 2-loss Auburn team who beat 2 playoff teams.
Yeah.
Because I actually want to talk about Auburn later in the show, because I think that Auburn, we're just talking about, I think Auburn has a chance to wreak havoc on this playoff, but we'll talk about that just a little bit later. Let's start with the games that are in the top 25 of interest. We talked about Notre Dame and Miami. Notre Dame has to travel to Miami to play the Hurricanes. What are your thoughts on that game?
I like Miami. I think they have a strong shot of beating them outright. It'll be a big game to them. I think the crowd will be all into it. I think they have a lot to impress the community by with a big win this week, and they'll get it done.
Yeah, the committee loves Notre Dame. I mean, college football loves Notre Dame when they're good like this.
Yeah.
When I first saw the line come out, I saw it was Notre Dame. Notre Dame given 3, and my initial thoughts were, even on the road, I liked them to play. I liked them to cover. But the more I watch this, the more I look at this game, the more I watch coverage of the game. You're right. My interest seems to slide to Miami. I think Notre Dame's only offensive strength is running the ball with Wimbush. And if Miami can shut that down, I don't think Notre Dame has a chance.
I think Miami's defensive line is strong enough to make an impact on that and close it down pretty fast.
Yeah, I don't think that Notre Dame has enough weapons. However, I think Notre Dame's running game won't be stopped. I think Notre Dame wins and covers that game.
I'm leaning towards the other side. I think Miami, it'll be a close game. I'm guessing within 3 to 5 points, and Miami will win.
So you got TCU and you got Oklahoma, 2 teams sitting directly outside of the playoffs. I think this game is the biggest of the week, even though they don't have playoff seeds right now. I think Baker Mayfield's, making his last-ditch effort for a Heisman Trophy candidacy. I think Oklahoma -7. I think Oklahoma wins a shootout, but TCU covers.
I'm leaning towards Oklahoma winning a shootout, but they'll win by 10 or so. I think they'll cover this week.
And then you got Bama and Mississippi State. Line's 2 touchdowns. I don't think Bama has to do any impressive showings anymore after their last 6 years. I don't think Bama has to obliterate teams. So with that being said, I think Bama wins this game, but I think they win it by 10 points. 28-18, something like that.
I agree with Bama winning, but I think they'll cover. I think it'll be more like a 2 touchdowns and a field goal kind of game.
I don't know. I mean, Nick's not a guy to... I mean, he obviously has to win this game to stay undefeated because that's what you have to do in college football. I just think Mississippi State's got enough talent that they can keep this close. I mean, Alabama needs, close games to keep them motivated. I think Mississippi State can give it to them. So I think Alabama wins 28-20, 28-17. So I think Mississippi State covers.
I'm thinking more 37-20.
Then you got Iowa and Wisconsin. Wisconsin's the team we just talked about getting no respect.
Mm-hmm.
So you look at the rest of their schedule. They've got Michigan. They've got Iowa. They've got a Big Ten title game.
Yeah.
Michigan, I don't think is ranked. If I'm not mistaken, let me look.
I think they're just outside.
Okay, so they're just outside of the playoff poll. They look like they're ranked in the AP poll at 21. So these are effectively their playoffs. They need to beat Iowa, they need to beat Michigan, and they need to beat Penn State effectively.
Ohio State, Michigan State, whoever plays out of that.
Well, Michigan State's in the same as... Michigan State's, if I'm not mistaken, is in the same as Wisconsin. But yeah, they effectively need to win out. And even then, who knows... An undefeated Wisconsin team, I would imagine, has to get in the playoff, but I'm not sitting on the committee. But
yeah.
I think Wisconsin wins and Wisconsin covers.
I think so too. I think it'll be a big test. Well, not a big test for them this week, but a big test to impress the committee this week.
Well, I mean, I know the committee has always loved Ohio State. I mean, you've seen that before in past years. So with Iowa demolishing Ohio State, if Wisconsin demolishes Iowa, does that give them any clout?
Might stir it up a little more. They might bump up a few spots, be on the outside looking in.
Well, I mean, if they win, they're going to bump up at least one.
Yeah.
Because TCU or Oklahoma has to lose.
Yeah.
If Notre Dame beats Miami, I mean, effectively, they're going to go... If Notre Dame beats Miami, they're going to be in the 6th seed, minimum. And I think the winner of Oklahoma-TCU will stay either just outside or, depending on the top 4 outcomes, I think they'll move right inside. So, Wisconsin's going up if they win.
Yeah.
Even if it's just a 7. So, I just, it's kind of the thing that makes me kind of... If you look at... I mean, what if Michigan beats Ohio State and Wisconsin beats Michigan? There's a couple of factors that Wisconsin really kind of needs to happen. And I don't think they control their own destiny, which kind of sucks for them because they're a strong squad. They're not flashy and they don't beat anybody by a ton of points.
Yeah. But they get the job done. And
what about, speaking of Ohio State, what about Ohio State and Sparty?
Ohio State and Sparty.
Ohio State's given 17 at this point.
Surprised the line's that high, actually. I think Michigan State's a strong enough team to cover. I don't see them winning this week. I'm projecting more of a 10 to 14 point difference with Michigan State covering.
Yeah, see, I looked at this game too, and, Columbus is ready to throw JT Barrett to the Wolves. They're ready to hang him up, and they're ready to hang him up and set him on fire. And I think, Urban's got he's got the Calipari method. We're playing for national titles. Well, this year you're not playing for national titles. So, honestly, I think Sparty can win this game. I think Sparty wins. I think Sparty wins outright. I think they come in there. They've still got Big Ten title implications and hopes. I think Sparty wins this game.
I wouldn't put it past them, but I'm leaning more towards Ohio State winning, but Michigan State easily covering.
Yeah, to me, is every time we doubt Michigan State, they beat them.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, you were right earlier. My apologies. Michigan State is in the East Division of the Big Ten. Yeah, Wisconsin's got nobody in there.
Yeah. Yeah, they got Nebraska.
They should win the West every freaking year.
Unless if Nebraska shows up or something.
Yeah, I mean, they got Nebraska, Iowa, no real threats. I mean, with their talent level, they should be winning the West every year. But
Yeah.
I think they do, actually. But yeah, they don't blow anybody away. But yeah, I think Ohio State's given up on the season. Man, they got to do something about the Big Ten.
Yeah,
That just seems very lopsided. I mean, you got Penn State, Michigan, Ohio State, Michigan State in the East.
Huh.
So, I mean, I don't know if Urban Meyer's... I mean, is the Big Ten trophy, if they get a Big Ten division or Big Ten conference trophy, does that even matter to him? Yeah, is it worth it to him? I mean, obviously, he still sits in the driver's seat of the East if they beat Michigan State, but I think Michigan State's going to beat him. I think Michigan State wins and covers, obviously. And then a game, obviously, that doesn't really have, that marquee matchup as it once did in the beginning of the year, but Clemson and Florida State, the line's 16 and a half some places, depending on where you look. Mm-hmm. But what are your thoughts on Clemson and Florida State? A game that had much more luster about 10 weeks ago.
Yeah, I would totally agree. I thought this would be a game for one of the teams to make a big decision for the committee if they win. But with the loss of quarterback to Florida State after week 1, not looking that way. I think Clemson easily covers to try and press the committee and maybe move up a notch in the playoff.
Yeah, I think Clemson wins this game. I think Clemson with, and they say every year, you can't look at past results. I think Clemson's the national title, recipient last year. They're the defending national champions. I don't think they need obliterating wins to stay in the playoff. I think they just need to keep winning. And I'm not saying they can't cover the spread because they absolutely can. I just feel that Florida State's defense is good enough to keep them around. I'm not saying that Florida State's going to win, but I think Florida State will lose by 2 touchdowns, which is enough to cover the spread.
Yeah.
So I can see a 35-21 game. Given, Blackman's improved. Obviously, I watch this team a little more than you do, but yeah. Blackman's improved. He's not good enough to beat Clemson in Clemson. So I think Clemson's going to be able to win this game easily. Actually, if I'm not mistaken, yeah, it's in Clemson. I think Clemson's going to be able to win this game easily, but I think that they can keep it within 2 touchdowns. I think Clemson wins, Florida State covers.
Yeah, my prediction on the game is like 38-21. Just something barely cover the spread. I wouldn't put Florida out to cover out. This would be one game that I wouldn't touch.
Yeah, Clemson's looked good this year, but the last couple of weeks they haven't been, running over anybody, which is okay because they don't need to. The committee loves them. The committee obviously overlooks a huge Syracuse loss. Oklahoma, for God's sake, lost to a team that's currently in the top 25.
Yeah.
And they're the number 5 seed. So you look at the situation. Clemson is clearly favored by the committee. You have TCU, who had, their loss to the same Iowa State team.
Yeah.
2 teams that lost to a team that's in the top 25, who's had a good season, who's in the Big 12. Both teams are sitting outside. You have a team in Clemson who's lost to Syracuse, who God knows where they're fucking ranked, and they're sitting in the top 4. So I don't think Clemson needs dominating wins to stay in the playoffs. I think they just need wins, and I think that they'll win this game. Florida State will keep it within 2 touchdowns.
Okay, I can see that as well.
Now to the game I think has really huge implications on the rest of this college football season, and that's Georgia and Auburn. I think this game's going to be interesting. Auburn has been playing fantastic lately, which, they've been a pretty good team. They've lost, I know they lost to Clemson. Their other loss was to LSU, which they blew that lead. They were playing really well and blew a huge lead.
Yeah, it was, 2.5 score?
I think they were up 24-7 at one point, or 23-7. They ended up losing 27-23 or something like that.
Yeah.
But Auburn presents a huge wrinkle in the playoff. They play 3 of the current top 4 teams. They're playing Georgia this week. They already played Clemson. They lost to them. But they played them close. It was like 13-6, 14-6, something like that. And they play Alabama in the Iron Bowl. Is Auburn a good enough team to shake this system up?
I think they have a good shot of shaking up all three. Whether they do so or not will be up to how they perform. I actually kind of like them against Georgia this week. I think that they might win outright. It'll be a close game. I'm predicting more of a 28-27 kind of game.
Yeah, see, actually, you read my mind because I have Auburn winning this game. Because I think Auburn wants to just wreak havoc on this playoff. And we talked about Clemson just a second ago. Clemson stands to benefit from Auburn doing exactly what I want them to do. Because Clemson beat Auburn.
Yeah.
The playoff committee loves Clemson. So if the playoff committee sees that Clemson beat Auburn, Auburn beat Georgia, Auburn beat Alabama, Clemson's the number one team in the country.
Yeah.
Now, Auburn's already got 2 losses. But they beat Georgia. We talked about this just a second ago. They beat Georgia. They beat Alabama. They beat whoever the fuck comes out of the East. I guess would be Georgia. Yeah, Georgia would probably come right back out of the East. If they beat Georgia again in the conference championship game, does a 2-loss SEC champion make the playoff?
Not sure about that, but
How do you leave a 2-loss? I mean, how do you leave a 2-loss? We're talking about putting 2 teams in right now.
yeah.
If that team beats those 2 teams that you have in the your playoff committee, you have those 2 teams firmly entrenched in your playoff committee right now. If Auburn beats those 2 teams and beats Georgia twice, I don't see how you leave them out. I don't see how you leave the SEC out of a playoff when that SEC team beat the number 1 ranked team, and then probably when they play Alabama, the number 1 ranked team again, and then probably when they play Georgia, another top 10 opponent.
Yeah.
How do you leave a 2-loss Auburn team out of the playoff? 'Cause I think they win this game. I think they win this game low scoring. I think they win this game 17-14, 20-17, something like that.
Okay. Another game I look forward to this week, even though both these teams are kind of out of the playoff picture, Oklahoma State and Iowa State.
Yeah, that game probably 3-4 weeks ago would have been a college game day matchup. This week, I don't know. I mean, Mason Rudolph has been great, but those 2 teams have just kind of, after their highs, they've kind of been underwhelming this week. This stage of the season.
They do. One of the reasons why I look forward to it is kind of make a loss look a little better if Iowa State somehow manages to win against Oklahoma State.
Yeah, I mean, it only moves them into the top 20. I don't think they have...
I'm not saying that they'll be in the playoff picture, but maybe a team that lost to them gives them a stronger chance of moving up.
Yeah, I mean, I could see what you're saying. It just to me doesn't have the same flair as it did 4 or 5 weeks ago,
Yeah.
I mean, there's not a conference title game in the Big 12. So this is effectively it for both teams.
Yeah.
I mean, Iowa State's got 2 conference losses. Oklahoma State's got 2 conference losses. Mm-hmm. One of Oklahoma or TCU is going to have a second conference loss. But Oklahoma State's already played Oklahoma.
Yeah.
And so I think the winner of that game, Oklahoma and TCU, is in the driver's seat. To me, it just doesn't have the same appeal. I get what you're saying. I mean, it could be a high-scoring affair. I think Oklahoma State I think Ohio State. Damn.
Oklahoma.
I think Iowa State blew their load early in the season by beating Oklahoma and TCU. Yeah. So, I don't know. I mean, it could be a fun matchup. I'm not going to sit down and watch it, but I see what you're saying. All right, it's time for your walk to the window.
All right.
In the NCAA, who are you taking this weekend?
I'm taking Michigan State is for sure one of my best picks of the week, plus the points. I might even put a little extra on the money line. Miami, as well as Auburn. Those are the top 3 I would probably take.
Well, since you are listening to the Vegas Squares podcast, clearly we should fade that because my picks this week are Michigan State, both against the spread, and I'd sprinkle some on the money line as well. I like South Carolina against Florida. I think they can cover a touchdown. I think Florida's just a dumpster fire. They don't know what they're doing. They don't have a coach anymore. I think they can cover 7 points at that point. And I like Auburn on the money line. I mean, I'm not going to take the points in this spot. I think they can just beat Georgia straight up. I think this is their Super Bowl, and if they win this game, they got another Super Bowl against Alabama. So I like Auburn with the money, with the plus money. I I found it at 130 so far. I'm hoping people start betting UGA again.
Yeah.
A thing I like to do, and since I couldn't find a lot of college that I liked, I went with a William Hill specialty. I don't know if you've ever seen these before. I've already hit one leg of it. I hit Western Michigan last night. I like to do the 14-point teasers. You get 4 teams, 14 points to move the line whichever way you want. And it's basically negative 200. So you're laying 2 to win 1.
Yeah.
And I've been hitting a lot of them recently. So here's my 14-point teaser. That's a tongue twister. 14-point teaser. I hit Western Michigan last night, like I told you. I had them at -7. They won by 28 points.
Yeah, they go to the original spread, yeah.
Yeah. I took Bama down to a pick'em because they were 14-point favorites. I took them down to basically winning the game. I took UConn. They were a 38.5-point dog. A 39-point dog. I took them up to 53.
Jeez.
They're playing UCF, which is where I went to school. I'm wearing the damn UCF shirt right now. UCF's offense is great. They're the highest scoring in the nation. But 53 points is a lot to cover. 53 points, I would rather have 53 points on my side at any spot. Give me any team in 53 points, and I'll take your bet.
Even UNLV?
Yeah. If you gave they lost that game against Howard, but they didn't lose by 53. If you give me any team plus 53 points, I'll take it any day. I'll bet you anything any day. And I took your Lions down to +2. So that was my 14-point teaser. I got Bama Pick'em, Western Michigan, who's already come through, UConn +53, and the Lions +2 to basically win the game.
Yeah. I think that'll be pretty easy.
Yeah, I mean, I'm hoping for that one to hit in. I got about $100 on it to win 50, so.
That's not bad.
But, being a square, somebody will fuck that up. The Lions will fuck that up. They're so Lions.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so let's turn our attention to some hockey before we wrap this up. It's a quick little hockey segment. We're about 15 games into the season, give or take a couple for most teams. Who's your most impressive team so far?
I have 2 teams on the list. One being impressive is Vegas so far. I'm surprised they came out of the gate very strong. They're at 19 points in 15 games so far.
Yeah.
Very impressed by their chemistry. I thought it would be very shaky in the beginning. And they're on a 4th-string goalie.
Yeah, I mean, that's the craziest thing is that, basically, they only have 5 goalies in their roster, in their whole organization, and they've used 4 of them. Most teams don't use 4 in multiple seasons.
Yeah. And the other impressive, just because how many points and how many games they have so far, is Tampa Bay. I think they're a very strong team, as you being a Lightning fan.
Yeah, I mean, they're obviously a strong team. Last year, they played pretty well. They narrowly missed the playoffs, but they were injured.
Yeah.
And, knowing what I know watching this team, it doesn't surprise me. They are impressive, but it's not a surprising thing to me because when they're healthy, they had Callahan out last year, they had Stamkos out last year, they had, for portions of time, they had Tyler Johnson, they had Alex Killorn out last year, they had Andre Palat out for an extended period of time. They were playing...
Kucherov was out a little too, right?
I don't remember him being out for an extended period of time, but he played out of his mind. But, Hedman wasn't right.
Yeah.
The team was just... Ben Bishop, the team was in a little bit of disarray. They finally decided to cut the cord on Bishop, which is fine.
Yeah.
And decided to give Vasilevsky the reins. And he was okay last year, but the experience really helped him. And now he looks like one of the most dominant goalies in the league.
Yeah, that's definitely one thing I look forward to the playoffs for hockey is how well Tampa Bay can be in the playoffs. I'm already having them as a playoff contender.
Yeah, they are the proverbial. I think on William Hill, they're the proverbial Stanley Cup favorites at this point.
They are.
I got my ticket hanging up on the kitchen, so I got them at 5-1. So, we'll see what happens. My 2 teams, you talked about it already, Vegas. I didn't expect, obviously we sit here in Vegas, you and I both gone to the games. We didn't expect this. Obviously the road trip was abysmal. I thought it was, for what they did, for what they had, I thought it was, the road trip was a success, even at 1-4-1 to get 3 points.
Yeah.
I told my girlfriend before, I said, if they get 2 wins on this road trip, it would be a huge success.
I'm surprised they snuck out a point against Toronto in that game.
Yeah, especially going down 3-1 immediately. Vegas, what they've done has been pretty phenomenal. And I think that it's sustainable once they get one of the 3 goalies back.
Yeah.
Another team that's really, really impressed me has been Los Angeles in the same division, Pacific Division. Los Angeles, I don't think anyone expected Los Angeles to come out of the gate this fast and be this good. I mean, the Pacific, you have a couple teams that have been disappointing. We'll get to that in just a second. But you have a couple of disappointing teams in the Pacific that have cleared the way for Vegas to be good, for Los Angeles to be good out of the gate. And those two have been my two most impressive teams because they're just young. They're inexperienced. I mean, anytime you have quick on the net, it's good. But in front of him, there's a lot of inexperience. The veterans that they do have are having to come together to teach these guys. I mean, Tanner Pearson's becoming a household name that you don't know about, especially if you're on the East Coast. But those are the two teams to me that have been really impressive. Has been Vegas and LA. Now, there's been some teams that have been very disappointing, and I know that you have a couple.
I do. My biggest disappointment so far is Edmonton. They were one of my picks to win the West. So far out of 14 games, they're at 11 points on the outside looking in, and are they strong enough to make a mid-season run to be a playoff contention team?
Well, that's the question is, even if they're not, are they desperate enough with the fan base and with the success last year? Because Edmonton, I'll interject here, Edmonton was one of my disappointing teams as well. I mean, obviously, they had a great playoff run. Now the expectations are high. McDavid's the best player in the league, arguably. And what they have right now is just not clicking. It's the same team, it's just something's not working. And how far into the season, if they're still playing this way, do you make a move? Or do you go after something or get rid of something that may be affecting chemistry at this point? I mean, they're 5-8-1. They got 11 points through 14 games. That's not Edmonton hockey that the fans expect.
No, especially after the playoffs that they had last year.
Yeah, I mean, who else you got?
Somewhat of a disappointment to me would be the Washington Capitals with that fan base, with them getting the President's Trophies past couple of years, 3 out of the last 5, I would say. The position that they're saying they're on the outside looking in, I think, was it 16 games, 17 points?
Yeah, right now they have 17 through 16. And the good news for them is that the Metropolitan Division lead's only 3 points away.
Yeah.
And for that, they still have optimism to face. Where you're talking about Edmonton, the division leads 13 points away. So it's a completely different situation in two teams that, I mean, Washington's usually the regular season beast.
Yeah.
So it does seem weird for them to get out of the gate flat. I mean, they lost some key pieces. I mean, they lost Marcus Johansson to Nashville. And they lost Nate Schmidt to Vegas. They lost Halsner to Montreal. I mean, they lost some key pieces. I mean, Ovi's there, Oshie's there, and if they're not playing, tip-top fantastic, the team has holes.
Yeah.
And I think it's being shown now. However, I guess the way you can look at it, if you're trying to find a silver lining, every year they play lights-out hockey for 82 regular season games and then shit the bed in the playoffs. So maybe they'll play average hockey, get into the playoffs.
Maybe
the pressure won't be on them. They won't have a President's Trophy, to have to live up to. The pressure won't be on them. Maybe they sneak into a, low Metropolitan or maybe even a wild card seed, and who knows? They could go on a run. I'm trying to find a silver lining for them. I mean, out of 16 games, it hasn't looked great. When you're averaging just over a point a game, it's not the ideal start to a season.
Another one, which isn't too surprising for me, would be Arizona. Just based on how many points that they have so far this year.
What do they have, 4? 6?
6.
Yeah, 6 points.
Yeah, 2 wins, 2 overtime losses.
Hey, but I mean, are they disappointing in the terms of, we knew they were going to be bad. I mean,
I didn't think they would be this abysmal, especially playing Vegas twice already and being steamrolled by them, pretty much.
Well, in fairness, Vegas, they did get a point against Vegas.
Yeah, that's true. Hey, that's pretty hard to come by against them.
Yeah, I mean, I thought with the moves they made with Stepan, Ronta, they've got a young nucleus. I didn't think they'd be this bad. You're right. I mean,
it's not too surprising that they're bad, but
it's not surprising they're in last, but it's surprising how far back they're in last.
Yeah,
I mean,
what?
Edmonton has
behind,
Edmonton has 11. Florida has 10. I mean, it's pretty bad how far back. I mean, 6 points through. I mean, we're talking about almost a quarter way through the season. You've only got 6 points. That's a problem.
Yeah.
And did you have any more disappointing teams? 'Cause I got a few on my mind.
No, let's hear what you have to say.
I mean, first and foremost, the easiest one to spot out. I mean, I'll grab the low-hanging fruit and say Montreal. Montreal has been a huge disappointment because Carey Price has been a huge disappointment. I think the fans are getting upset, and I don't know if Boudreau's going to, or not Bruce Boudreau, but Claude Julien's going to be there through the end of the season. That experiment just doesn't seem to be working.
No.
I don't know if his message is not getting across. I mean, I was excited to see Drouin in Montreal as much as I was pissed off that he was gone. I mean, that trade clearly worked out the Lightning's favor. Sergachev has just been a beast. He's got more points than Drouin, and he's a defenseman.
Yeah.
But he hasn't really quite gotten his stride in Montreal. Pacioretty's playing okay. They lost Radulov, who was a huge piece. It's just... That's the low-hanging fruit. It's easy when Montreal's bad to say that they're a disappointment.
Yeah, their chemistry is very shaky. I think they got a few locker room issues as well.
Yeah, there's something going on in Montreal, and it's not working right now. So we'll see. Minnesota, another one. There's the Bruce Boudreau team I was talking about. His message just doesn't seem to be getting through. They lost Hansel. Dubnik's not playing well. Alex Tuck, I know he wasn't on the Minnesota Wild team, but I'm sure the Minnesota Wild could use him. Yeah, in this situation. He's playing pretty well for Vegas.
Yeah.
Chicago, I don't know if to say that it's a disappointment. I don't think they're as good anymore. Corey Crawford's playing great, which is why it's so confusing that they're disappointing. Because last year Corey Crawford played terribly, and they were the number one seed. So, is it just, did Panarin mean that much to Patrick Kane's line? Because obviously he was clearly devastated when Panarin got traded.
I think he was a difference maker for that line, but I'm surprised he, as of right now, how much of a difference maker it's looking.
Yeah, I mean, you talked about Edmonton. They're not bad. We talked about that before. Yeah, they're not getting off the hot start. In Chicago, I guess Saad's not taking the place of Panarin, and it's more surprising to me the way that Corey Crawford's playing that they've been that disappointing so far. In the East, I'd say Carolina. Not Carolina. Carolina's obviously always a disappointment.
Yeah.
I thought they'd be better than they were. I mean, they're pretty much 500 ball. I thought they'd be better with the additions they made with Kruger and Darling, basically.
I think there's a team that might be on the outside looking in come playoff time that could make a run at it.
Yeah, Carolina, if they can get hot, I mean, they're not a bad team. I thought they'd be better with the additions they had. It's not showing up in the first 13 games. And mind you, they've played the least amount of games, so they've got a couple games in hand against everybody. Now, I have a disappointing team for you, and it might seem shocking considering they are in first place. And that's the Pittsburgh Penguins.
Oh, yeah.
And I don't know if that's expectation versus reality, but they don't look like the two-time defending. I mean, Matt Murray does not look good.
No, he looks good in playoffs.
I mean,
regular season, he kind of looks shaky.
Yeah, I mean, they only have 20 points through 17 games, and when they get beat, they get beat.
Yeah, like when they lost to Winnipeg 7-1.
They lost to Winnipeg 7-1. They lost to Chicago 10-0 or 10-1.
Yeah, something around there.
They've lost 2 games to Tampa Bay by a combined 13 goals.
Yeah.
I mean, when they get beat, they get destroyed.
Yeah.
I mean, they got rid of Niemi, which, obviously was necessary, but the backup's not doing very much well. I forget his name. His name's eluding me at the moment, but their backup's not much better. So, with that being said, even though they're in first place, that whole division is not very good in itself. I mean, New Jersey's been a pleasant surprise. They're still behind Pittsburgh. Columbus has always been pretty solid.
Yeah.
The Islanders have been a pleasant surprise. But overall, that division is just mired in mediocrity. I mean, 17 games, 16 games, 15 games, and the leader's 20 points.
It's pretty abysmal.
I mean, usually you have a team that is emerging right now. I mean, look at the Atlantic. You've got Tampa Bay, who's 6 points ahead. You've got St. Louis, who's 6 points ahead of they got 25 points. Los Angeles has 24 points.
Yeah, you'd think one of them have at least 22, 23 points at this time.
Yeah, it's crazy to think of a first-place team, a team who is at the top of their division, being a disappointment. But I just think that the way that they get beat and the way that they play, they're not very good on back-to-backs. They're getting old. And to me, they've been a disappointment so far. And as weird as that sounds.
No.
It's going to be an interesting weekend because there's a lot of football, a lot of hockey coming up, a lot of baseball, a lot of basketball coming up. Baseball's over. That was an entertaining World Series, though, by the way. I don't know how much of that you got a chance to watch, but that was pretty fun.
I watched quite a bit at work, so.
Yeah, so that was an interesting series. I think baseball's on its way back if they can keep having interesting series like that.
Yeah.
But
the thing that's going downhill for baseball is games are lasting too long.
Yeah, but I mean, look at it. You talk about games lasting too long. When you're watching an interesting game, does it matter how long it's going? Because to me, I don't know. To me, they're doing everything in their power to speed up the game.
Yeah.
But the problem is they're speeding up the game for people who aren't really watching the game.
Yeah, that's true. It kind of as a distractional.
They're trying to figure out, okay, the casual fan's not watching baseball, but the baseball fan is watching baseball. And I don't think the baseball fan cares how long a game's going.
As long as it's a game.
Well, even if it's a pitcher's duel or whatever, a baseball. You and I mean, like you watch a football game, you're not sitting there going. I think football is the most boring sport to watch live. If you're watching it on TV, you can have the distractions, you have the fantasy outlet. If you're at a stadium, football is the most boring live sport to watch, in my opinion.
I would say it's up there, but I wouldn't say it's the most boring live sport.
I mean, obviously hockey takes the cake. Basketball is constantly moving. Even soccer is constantly moving.
Yeah.
Baseball and football are, say, the 1 and 1A most boring sports to watch live. But I can watch baseball more, to me, because I feel it actually moves faster than football.
It's more smooth.
Yeah, it's a more smooth transition. You have more interaction. To me, I feel like you buy your ticket and you're just sitting there in the game. There's a lot more interaction in a baseball game than in football. So I don't know. I think watching a live sport, I haven't gone to a football game a pro football game in a long time because to me it's boring.
Well, last one I went to was last year when I visited back home, and I don't know, just the fan support back in Detroit kind of makes it worth going. Plus pre-gaming.
Well, yeah, I mean, look at this. I mean, you sit here. I've got a 75-inch television in my house. Mm-hmm. I paid $400 for NFL Sunday ticket.
Uh-huh.
I have free access to my own refrigerator, my own concession stand. Yeah. Why do I want to get out in that shit? Go get pissed drunk. I can get pissed drunk here.
Yeah.
Go deal with everybody else who takes sports way too seriously.
Yeah, that's true.
And then have to drive myself home and pay $400 for one weekend.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Where you can have that season long.
I can have that $400 one-time payment, drink as much as I want, eat as much as I want here, have shit delivered to me, pizza, Chinese, wings, whatever.
Yeah.
Have everything come to me. I think that's the new wave of the NFL. That's why ticket sales, I don't understand. When I look at StubHub and look at those tickets, I'm like, no fucking way.
Yeah, I'm with you that NFL ticket prices are atrocious, outrageous.
I think that's a topic we should talk about next week after we look at our picks for next week.
Yeah.
And realize there's a reason we call ourselves the Vegas Squares. But this has been fun. I mean, this is the first podcast. I think we gelled pretty well together. I hope that everybody enjoyed it. Check us out on SoundCloud. Check us out on YouTube. Check us out on Facebook, or not Facebook. Check us out on Instagram. Check us out on Twitter. Instagram is Vegas Squares Podcast. We usually give away at least 1 to multiple free picks a day. Tail it or fade it. The choice is yours. VegasSquares.com at Twitter, at VegasSquares.com on Twitter. Usually I'll either try to put the same pick up or we'll try to put a couple different picks up to give you guys kind of the slate. Everything's free. We're not going to charge anybody anything. Like I said, tail us or fade us. The choice is yours. Hopefully you'll tail us. Hopefully we'll be successful. This has been, we're having fun. We'll see what happens. See how the show takes off. Hopefully you guys follow along, join us. Feel free to interact with the show. Give us an email, vegassquares@gmail.com. Please tweet at us. If anything you want to talk about on the show, you can always talk about it. We'll bring it up on the show. If you have input, interaction, we always love that. So we'll see where this goes. We're having fun. Yeah, you don't take it too seriously. Hopefully we'll make a little money at the window, and hopefully people will tail us and not fade us.
Yep, absolutely. Thank you, everybody.
All right, you guys have a good one. Look for the next podcast. Check this one out up on SoundCloud, up on YouTube very, very shortly. Check us out. Vegas Squares Podcast. Take care.